Hello and welcome to my April wrap-up. I didn't do as well in April as I did in March or the month before that. I was off to a good start. I thought, yes, I'm going to continue to read loads of books this month. But then I didn't, I still read quite a few, but I didn't read as many as I was hoping to read because I got really into writing. It was like I found my writing mojo again. I think the sunny weather, I'm filming this right now in daylight, just made me feel really motivated to be creative and produce my own stuff. So yeah, I've been doing that instead of reading so much. I really didn't want to write in the couple of months beforehand. It just felt like the most difficult thing in the world to try to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard and write my own stories. Yeah, it wasn't easy, but right now I just want to do it all the time. Literally all the time. I could be doing it right now if it wasn't for the fact that I feel like I just really have to do my April wrap-up. So yeah, I seem to be in a bit of a writing phase rather than a reading phase, but still I have a couple more things I want to work on in terms of writing today, and then I plan to treat myself to some reading time for the rest of this weekend because it is the early May bank holiday, so yay! Okay, anyway, so the first book I finished reading in April was Optimists Die First. Who's this by? Nielsen. Susin Nielsen. So I had to check that because I read it so long ago. I had forgotten. I finished this in the first few days of April and I really enjoyed it. So I think she's better known for We Are All Made of Molecules. That one. Yeah, I hadn't really heard anything about this before I picked it up. But I was really intrigued by the premise. It's about a girl called Petula whose little sister died, I think the year before, or maybe the year before that. And she's still has a lot of issues around this. She considers herself a pessimist because she's now obsessed. She's overly cautious about any accidents happening to her or her family or her friends. She has all of these kind of protective behaviours that she goes through. She won't walk past a building site. She doesn't like shaking hands with people, that kind of thing, because she doesn't want to spread germs. And yeah, she's just really stuck in this very bad headspace. And then this guy walks into her life and she finds herself being more and more attracted to him. She resists it very strongly at first. She doesn't want to even be friends with him, but he perseveres. And so yeah, it's really interesting because you could hear that description, you could think, oh no, it's going to be about a boy who walks into a girl's life and saves her. But it's not like that at all. It's not like that at all because there's all this stuff that he's hiding, all of this dark stuff in his past, and they help each other, and the ending is kind of open, that everything's not neatly resolved. So it's a really interesting book and I would recommend it, and it's actually one that I enjoyed enough that I think I'm going to keep. The next book I finished reading was a non-fiction book, Off the Clock by Laura Vanderkam. I've talked about Laura's books so many times on this channel. She's my favourite personal development writer. She talks about time management and making the most out of your time, and I really enjoyed this. This is like, I would say this is like kind of the peak of her writing so far. I think you could read this and you could get a lot out of it, but I think for best results you should read 168 Hours as well, because that really talks about the concept of time tracking and goes into a lot more detail than it does in this book. In this book it touches on it, but it also talks about a whole lot of other different ways about making the most of your time. And what I really loved about this book is that it's a time management book that's not about work. It really is about making the most of your time so that you have more time to enjoy your life, basically, so that you have more moments where you feel off the clock, essentially. And I just really appreciated that. I thought it was brilliant, and it's motivational as ever. Yeah, I just loved it. It kind of touched on so many different areas that I've been thinking about lately, and yeah, I could honestly start reading it again, except that I am currently reading the last of her time management books that I haven't read. which is called I Know How She Does It, which is actually about women with children, like high income women with children, which is not my situation at all. I'm not on that kind of income, and I don't intend on having children, but I still thought it would be interesting because, yeah, I love her books that much. Hopefully when we're checking, I'll tell you about I Know How She Does It, but for now, I can strongly recommend Off the Clock. It was a brilliant read, and I think almost anybody could get something out of it. The next book I finished reading was actually an audiobook, but I happen to have a print copy of it as well, which I'm just going to wave at you now. High Fidelity by Nick Hornby. I've read other books by Nick Hornby before. I've read About a Boy, and I read Slam, which is the YA novel he wrote about a boy who gets his girlfriend pregnant. Is she his girlfriend? I can't remember. Anyway, he gets a girl pregnant basically in Slam. And yeah, I'd never read this, which is probably his most widely known novel. It was made into a film adaptation I haven't seen either, and yeah, I was intrigued to check it out. Unfortunately, I didn't like it as much as the other Nick Hornby books that I've read. I just felt the protagonist didn't really have any redeeming qualities, and I wasn't rooting for him at all. I was kind of hoping he'd like sort his head out, but other than that, didn't really care. He could have got run over by a bus at the end of the book, and you know, it's just. So the protagonist of High Fidelity is a man who is basically he's just broken up with his girlfriend, and he's obviously really upset by this, but in extreme denial about how upset he is. And he tells you about his previous girlfriends, about all the things he's done wrong to his most recent ex, and you just kind of think, well, this guy's a bit of a waste of space, really. He's just really flustered about being a human being, and he needs, you know, to grow up. And I mean, you can tell the author isn't like 100% on his side. You know, the author thinks he should grow up. And having read Nick Hornby's other books, they are about basically men learning to grow up and actually be adult people who treat other people fairly and kindly. But yeah, I just didn't feel like he grew up enough, you know? He just barely made it there by the end of the book. So yeah, I think I'll be giving this copy away. I don't think I'll keep it. I don't think I'll want to read it again, but I will continue to read books by Nick Hornby. This hasn't put me off because I've read some of his others, like I say, and enjoyed them. So there you go. Sometimes you just can't like every book by an author. Next, I read the first volume of the comic series Sex Criminals, which was part of a secret project that me and my partner Nick are doing. I will tell you more about it in an upcoming video, but for now, I will say that I really enjoyed that volume and I'm looking forward to reading more. I think I was just really in the mood to read some comics, and I just, yeah, got through quite a few issues of that on Nick's iPad, and yeah, I just checked on Goodreads and I'd covered the first volume. So yeah, I'm counting that as the one book read. I feel a bit bad, I think I've said before, if I include single issues of comics as books read, but if they have been collected into a trade paperback with 4 or 5 issues, then I count those as books. So yeah, I put them on Goodreads as a trade paperback, but more often than not I'm reading single issues. Sex Criminals is a very weird, but very fun and really appealing to me story about a couple who can essentially freeze time when they have sex, and they use this to commit crimes, and the series sort of follows them discovering each other and getting caught by some mysterious organisation, and yeah, that's where I stopped. So hopefully I'll pick it up soon and see what happens next. I really, really am enjoying the series. It's very funny, very silly, and yet really moving at the same time, and that's great. I really enjoy that. The next book I finished reading, oh my god, I don't have it here to wave at you, although I did read a print copy because it was a library book and I had to go back, which is kind of the only reason I read it. So I first heard about this book. In fact, the only place I've ever heard about this book was on the booktube channel Sarah Actually Reads, which no longer exists. I think Sarah's retired from booktube entirely and taken it all down. And on that channel, she used to talk a lot about this book called The River of No Return by B. Ridgway, like really enthusiastically all the time. And so I decided to get it out of the library and then never got around to reading it. 20 renewals later, at least, I hit my renewal limit and I couldn't renew it anymore. So I thought, I better actually read it. And oh my God, I can't believe that I only ever heard about this book on one place, because it was incredible. It's about a man who was a lord in Regency England and was incredibly privileged and went to fight a war in Spain, and while he was fighting gets transported forward in time to 2003. I think 2003. And there he discovers these people called the Guild who take him in and give him an allowance, give him a couple of £1 million to spend every year, and generally look after him, get him acclimatised to the world he's found himself in, and they say, you can do whatever you like with your life now, except that you can never go back and you can never come back to England. Those are the two rules. You have to live in a different country. So they send him to live in America. And yeah, he kind of moves on with his life. He gets quite comfortable in his new world. And then 10 years later, he gets a summons and he has to come back to England, and they tell him that they've got a mission. And actually, you can go back, and you are going back now. And it's just absolutely brilliant. There's a mystery, there's a conspiracy, there's so much that he isn't told and that he finds out, and different people telling him different things, and it's just wonderful. I loved it so much, and it's been a while and the sequel is not out. There's a prequel which I have tried to get my hands on, but I cannot find anywhere that will sell me the ebook. Just nothing, nowhere will sell me in the UK an ebook of this book. So Penguin, what's going on? What's that about? But that said, even though the sequel hasn't materialised yet, the author does still seem to exist. I think it's so worth reading. It was beautiful. I loved it so much. Yeah. And last I checked, it was only $2.99 on Kindle. So yeah, if you just want to get a cheap ebook of it, go for it. It's well worth it. I loved it so much. I really, really recommend this book. Then I read We Could Have Been the Wombles, The Weird and Wonderful World of One-Hit Wonders by Tom Bromley. I really, really enjoyed this. This is part of my novel research, and I kind of was reading this kind of under duress because I thought, you know, it'll be good to feed into my novel, blah, blah, blah. And actually, I found it really, really fun. There were so many songs I hadn't heard of, and I looked them up on Spotify and played them. There were a few I couldn't find on Spotify, of course, and that was a bit disappointing. But yeah, what was really interesting was how many of them I did actually know, but I didn't know what they were called. You know, I didn't know the artist, I didn't know the title. So yeah, this was really fun, and kind of getting the backgrounds of these people, what happens to them next. Amazing number of former one-hit wonders go and live in Germany. Even those who are not from Europe, even some like American ones now live in Germany and are still making money there. So yeah, this is a really fun read. I think it was also published as, previously published as The One and Only. So there are versions of this book floating around with different titles, so bear that in mind. But yeah, if you want to read about some kind of fun music history, pop culture history, I'd really, really recommend it. It was a good read. It was published quite a while ago. I mean, this is the updated edition, published in 2006. But that's still 13 years out of date. And so if there have been any interesting, more recent one-hit wonders, they are not in this book. But still, I think if you are, you know, if you're in your 20s and 30s, you'll still get a lot out of this. I think if you're a bit older, you'll probably get a bit more out of this because you'll remember more of the one-hit wonders from, you know, the first time round than not being in a book. But yeah, I think probably teens might not get so much out of this because they're less likely to have heard of all of the songs, but yeah, older than that, I think you're going to have some fun. So yeah, if that sounds like your kind of thing, check it out. And finally, the last book I finished reading in April was actually a reread. Sorcerer by... I can talk. I keep messing up my words in this video. Sorcerer to the Crown by Sencho. I loved this as much as I did the first time. The year I read this, it was my favourite book that I read in that entire year. And yeah, I loved it again. I love it still. I can now read the sequel. I wanted to make sure I was properly prepared for the next book in the series, and that's why I reread it. And yeah, I feel prepared. I feel ready. Bring me some more Sencho. So that's the end of my April wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. You may have noticed that I only listened to one audiobook in the entire month, which is bizarre for me, to be honest. I have actually made a lot of headway with Mort by Terry Pratchett, but I didn't finish it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, in May I will finish it. It went back to the library, so I put a hold on. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I will get it out again, and then I can finish listening to it. Life just kind of got ahead of me, and I just wasn't awake enough to listen to it in the mornings. Normally I listen to audiobooks in the mornings while I put my makeup on, but yeah, that just wasn't happening too often this month, and I ran out of time. Very sad. So yeah, I did try to read more audiobooks this month, or listen to more audiobooks this month, but it just wasn't happening. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you would like to read more books but don't know where to start, or if you have a friend who would like to read more books but doesn't know where to start, check out my free e-course on exactly that. It's called Ignite Your Passion for Reading, Fall in Love with Books, and it takes you through the whole process of book discovery, how to find books that will really, really get you excited and make you love reading. Thank you again. Bye!